Hello everyone. This is third video on the Abbazia Defence, and this is another game that Bronstein played, but this time playing with white. And his opponent is a very strong chess player, Botvinnik. Of course, all of you know him. And Botvinnik in this game chose to play Abbazia Defence. And it's a very interesting game. Let's see what happened here. Now, this was played in Russia in 1952, so it's a game which took place before the other game of Bronstein versus Spassky that we saw in the last video. Just wanted to show you the main ideas and how Botvinnik developed his pieces. E4, E5, that's the king's pawns game, like we've been talking about. F4, main line for king's gambit. E takes F4, that's king's gambit accepted. Knight F3, king's knight's gambit, and D5. This is the Abbazia Defence. And E takes D5. Bronstein takes. And now Botvinnik develops his king's knight on the square F6, as opposed to Bronstein in the game that we viewed in the last video, who developed his knight on E7. Now, as you can see, both of these moves have the same idea of attacking that central pawn, the idea that continues from the main line of Abbazia attack. But Botvinnik, being a very strong chess player, Bronstein is a very strong chess player too, and he has an excellent rating and average while playing King's Gambit, and he's won many games playing King's Gambit accepted. But here we see a little more superior imagination from Botvinnik. And he's placed the knight on F6, which is a more active square. It's going towards the center, and it's an ideal spot for the knight. And so bishop B5, check, C6 to defend, D takes C6, and B takes C6. Now this pawn cannot be captured. It's backed up by the knight on B8. Bishop C4 has to retreat somewhere, so finds the square C4. Knight D5. Now another main idea of playing the gambits for black, to not lose the initiative. So this is the first move, I think, first move of the game in which from which black starts to gain the tempi, blocking the bishop right away. And again, we see that main idea of King's Gambit accepted, D pawn being pushed up to the 4th rank. Now bishop D6, another good square for the bishop now. Castle's short, Botvinnik castle's short. Knight C3, knight takes C3, pawn takes C3, B takes C3. And now bishop G4, pinning the knight with the queen, breaks the pin, knight D7. And now here, I want you to pause for a moment and compare this position of black with the game that we saw before. Now we can see almost all of black's pieces are well developed. We have this knight, this bishop here on G4, this bishop here on D6, this knight here on D7. We have this pawn up on F4. This pawn here on C6. And these rooks can come into action very quickly. So this knight has its influence on these squares in the center. It's going towards the center. At the same time, This bishop is slicing through this c8 h3 diagonal, also cutting through this diagonal here, which is g4 d1 diagonal, d1 g4 diagonal. Then we have this bishop, the dog-squared bishop, cutting through the board again. This bishop is actually placed at the same place where Bronstein placed his bishop in the previous game that we saw. But here it's backed up by other pieces as well. And we have the queen, which can come out to play in just one move. Then we have the rooks coming out to open files in just one move each. And so we see that Black has actually lots of counterplay here. He has lots of good squares to move his pieces to, and his pieces are well placed. Compare this or contrast this to the Black's position in the previous game, and you'll see the main idea behind gambits not to lose the initiative. So the game continued: g3, knight b6, attacking the bishop. Bishop retreats to b3, c5, c4, queen f6, knight e5. You can see that Black is countering very well. It's an excellently playable line for Black, the Abbazia defense. Bishop takes e5, d takes e5, now queen takes e5, bishop takes f4, queen moves to h5, rook f e1, brought to the open file, rook f e8, challenging that rook placed on the open file, a4, bishop e2, now attacking the queen, and queen c3, knight d7, a5, knight f6, bishop a4, rook e6, king g2, knight e4. And you can already see, this game is lost for white. Queen a3, g5, and white resigns. Let's see some possible continuations. Say bishop takes g5 here. Then queen takes g5. Queen, say, comes to c1. And the queen can comfortably go back to h5. And as you can see, Black is up a piece and winning very easily. It's a very dynamic situation. And Black has clear advantage, and he's going to mate in a few moves. But say bishop doesn't take g5. What are the other replies? Bishop e3, okay. Queen f3, if king h3, the only good square for the king, then rook h6, mate. If queen e3 to defend, then knight f6, simply threatening the queen. Queen f2, knight g4, queen g1, knight e3, bishop takes e3, queen f3 check, king h3, the only square for the king is forced, rook h6 check. And if after queen f2, if after knight f6, queen goes to c3, then g takes f4, g takes f4, knight takes e4, queen h3, queen g5, queen g3, knight takes g3, b takes d7, knight takes e4, king h1, knight f2 mate. So there is absolutely no way out for white, and white is completely lost. And I want to bring to your attention the play that Botvinnik has presented here with Black, playing the Abbazia defense, developing his pieces quickly placing them on ideal squares and not losing the initiative. So this line definitely goes into my repertoire for black playing against the king's gambit accepted.